Coming up now in your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown, we have everything you need to know about the MJF and Tony Khan situation. We also have the tie-breaking procedures and lineup for the final night of the Best of the Super Juniors. And we have all the big news coming out of AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Subscribe to Spoiler-Free Wrestling for all your wrestling news. All Elite Wrestling presented one of its biggest pay-per-views in its 3-year history on Sunday night from Las Vegas, but in the days leading up to the show, the talk was all about Maxwell Jacob Friedman and his dispute with Tony Khan over his contract. So let's get you completely caught up with everything that has been going on regarding MJF and AEW. So going back several weeks, there have been reports that MJF is unhappy with his contract in AEW. He signed a 5-year deal with the company in 2019 and is looking to get a deal that more closely resembles his standing on the show. In 2019, MJF was not as big as he is now. Now he's one of the top performers on the show, but his contract is still based on what he was worth in 2019. So Tony Khan has said that he's willing to pay MJF more, but MJF has to add more years onto his contract, taking him well past 2024, when both WWE and AEW will likely be earning more revenue through television rights fees. Now, there have been conflicting reports about if MJF is willing to add more years onto his AEW contract or not, with some saying he's willing to do that and others saying that he is not. The last I heard, he was willing to do this, but somehow talks between the two sides were breaking down still. So there have also been reports out there over the last several weeks that WWE are interested in signing MJF once he's a free agent in 2024. And a leaked story claimed that MJF was leaning more towards signing with WWE than he was with AEW, but this is MJF, so you never really know what's going on. He blurs the line between reality and entertainment quite often. So then on Saturday, MJF no-showed a meet and greet session at the AEW Fan Fest. Some fans had purchased tickets specifically for a meet and greet with him. In those cases, refunds or exchanges were offered. It was said that AEW officials were unable to reach MJF on his phone while this was going on. Then things got really weird a little while later, as a report came out that MJF had purchased a plane ticket from Las Vegas to Newark, New Jersey that left on Saturday evening, with the idea being MJF was going to no-show the pay-per-view similar to what he had done for the meet and greet. Now, the website Fightful says they confirmed the plane ticket had been purchased, but Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer was unable to confirm this. So it is a little disputed regarding if a plane ticket for MJF was purchased for Saturday evening or not. Another point to note here is that MJF had another ticket for him to go home after the pay-per-view, and that ticket was never canceled, which could possibly lead one to believe, well, if you're going to book a ticket for Saturday evening to go home, you would also cancel your other plane ticket, but that's not what occurred. So then we get to the day of the show. There were reports that MJF was not at the arena, but an internal listings for the show came out, and that still had MJF versus Wardlow listed as the match that would start the pay-per-view. So then at the pay-per-view, or on the pay-per-view, MJF came out, got absolutely destroyed by Wardlow with numerous power bombs. He was pinned and then stretchered out of the arena. After the match, MJF reportedly sent a text message to Fightful stating that he arrived to the arena just before his match, left immediately after, and said that he now has a lot to think about. Then at the post-event press conference, Tony Khan made it clear that he was not going to answer any questions regarding what went down with MJF or any questions about MJF at all. So considering how the match with Wardlow went and how MJF was stretchered out, it's likely we're not going to see MJF for a little while. At least a little while. So now regarding if this is a work or not, if this was a real situation that occurred, if it was embellished for entertainment purposes, if the situation was embellished to get MJF more over as a heel, which he definitely was on the show, people within AEW are saying that Tony Khan would never, quote-unquote, work the roster. He would never lie to them. So the chances of Tony Khan being involved in an elaborate work seem low based on that. Also, it's unlikely that Tony Khan would agree to a staged no-showing of the meet and greet with fans at the AEW Fan Fest. It's unlikely that Tony Khan would agree to doing something like that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that MJF didn't go out on his own and decide to do something like that. The possibility remains that much of what happened here was an elaborate plan by MJF, either for the purposes of obtaining a new and better contract than what AEW was offering him, that he no-showed the Fan Fest and made it appear as though he was going to no-show the pay-per-view, all to gain leverage and get a better deal from the company. All of this did seem to make him more of a heated bad guy when he came out. The fans were really on him. The fans were really into Wardlow beating him up. And much of these reports that came out in the last couple of days, I think, led to him having more heat when the match started. I think it can safely be said that there are parts of this story that are real. And there are parts that are entertainment, if you want to call it that. It's just not clear which are which. But I would like to have a discussion about this. I want to know what you have to say about this situation. What do you feel went down between Maxwell Jacob Friedman and Tony Khan over the last couple of days, and what's been going on between MJF and Tony Khan over the last few months? Please start a discussion in the comments section. I want to see what you guys have to say about this. CM Punk is the new AEW World Champion. He defeated Hangman Page in the main event of Double or Nothing to win the belt. He becomes the 5th person in history to do so. Hangman Page's reign ends after 197 days and 6 successful title defenses. Up on your screen right now, we've got a list of the first 4 champions, the first 4 AEW World Champions in history, and we've ranked them by successful title defenses. So at the top, you see Jon Moxley spent 277 days with the title and successfully defended it 9 times. Kenny Omega had the longest reign at 346 days, but he defended the title less times than Moxley. He had 6 successful title defenses during his reign. Hangman Page is 3rd on this list at 197 days, but also 6 successful title defenses. We gave the tiebreaker to Omega since he was champion longer. And the inaugural champion, Chris Jericho, spent 182 days with the title and 3 successful title defenses. In the post-event media scrum, Punk was asked about Eric Bischoff's comments that he was the biggest financial flop in the history of wrestling. Comments that are fairly easily refuted considering the increase in pay-per-view revenue alone that Punk has meant for the company. But Tony Khan piped in and immediately refuted Bischoff's comments and said that they were BS. It would take a very long time to go through all of Khan's comments regarding this. He was quite riled up at the end of the show, but needless to say, the AEW president refuted Bischoff's comments. He did say, "We do have, over the years, a good amount of financial data in pro wrestling. I can tell you no one wrestler has ever come in and made a bigger plus delta financial difference in the history of my company," Khan said of CM Punk. This is the 3rd-year anniversary this week. Going into year 4, no one person has ever made a more positive impact. We just did a record pay-per-view buy. Every pay-per-view, he's done a 4 pay-per-view cycle now. Every one of them was the record, Khan continued. He's the biggest part of financial success in the history of this company. Let's effing go. So Tony Khan says CM Punk is the biggest financial success in the history of AEW, and now CM Punk is the promotion's world champion. Just to keep this video from going like a half an hour, here are some quick bulleted notes on what else you need to know regarding what happened at Double or Nothing in Las Vegas on Sunday night. So, just quickly, in a backstage segment, Andrade El Idolo announced that he is a new business partner and then revealed it to be Roosh. The two then gave the Los Ingobernables fist raise, so this should be all interesting to see how it develops. And of course, with the Forbidden Door coming up, it should be interesting to see how the two LIJ factions interact if they do at all. Also, the former Malcolm Bivens now once again going by the name Stokely Hathaway, debuted, and he immediately seemed to assume the role of Jade Cargill's new manager. In the same segment, the former Ember Moon, now known as Athena, debuted and sided with Chris Statlander and Anna Jay against Cargill and her baddies. Adam Cole and Britt Baker are your inaugural winners of the Owen Hart Cup, with Bobby Fish helping Cole secure his victory over Joe with some interference. Meanwhile, Baker reversed a victory roll into her own pinning combination on Ruby Soho and picked up a clean victory. There was then a very nice presentation of the championship belts and the Owen Hart Cup by Dr. Martha Hart. Julia Hart also made a splash on the pay-per-view. She finally turned to the dark side, aligning with the House of Black and helping them defeat the Death Triangle in trios action. So the trigger was finally pulled on that angle. So it was a very eventful night in AEW. But now let's talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling's Best of the Super Juniors. The final night in the round-robin portion of the Best of the Super Juniors 29 takes place on Tuesday. Now, only 3 matches on the show could potentially play into how the finals will shape up, however. Let's take a look at the standings now. In Block A, for all intents and purposes, there are only 2 wrestlers in the running to win the block, those being Hiromu Takahashi and Taiji Ishimori, and as luck would have it, they will face each other on Tuesday. Now, Ace Austin is not really eligible, but technically, if both Takahashi and Ishimori are disqualified or unable to compete in their match on the show, they would both earn 0 points, and in that case, if Ace Austin was to win his match over Francesco Akira, he would advance, but that's almost assuredly not going to happen, and even NJPW1972.com has Austin listed as mathematically eliminated, so we can probably toss Ace Austin out of the running for the block. However, he did have a great tournament. He did very well in his first Best of the Super Juniors representing Impact Wrestling. So Block A all comes down to Taiji Ishimori and Hiromu Takahashi, the final match in the block. If Takahashi wins, he holds the tiebreaker over Ishimori, so he would advance. And even if Austin wins, Takahashi beat him too, so he would hold the tiebreaker over both of them. And of course, if Ishimori wins, nobody else would be able to equal his point total. Things are a little bit more open in the B block, but not by much. 2 matches in the B block on Tuesday can affect how the finals will shape up. Robbie Eagles can advance if he wins and El Phantasmo loses, since Eagles holds the tiebreaker over El Desperado after beating him the other night. El Desperado can advance with a win and a Robbie Eagles loss, and the only wrestler in the group who controls his own destiny is El Phantasmo. He advances with a win or even a draw. Let's run down the lineup for the show. The first match will see Taguchi go up against Kanemaru. Both of these 2 are tied for the bottom spot in the basement of Block A, so they will be wrestling to see who can escape being the last or tied for the last in their block. We will then see Master Wato take on Doki, and both of these 2 are sitting at 6 points at the bottom of Block B. Then we will see Bushi take on El Lindaman, and El Lindaman sitting with 8 points. Bushi is sitting at 6 points. Then we will see back to Block A, Clark Connors will take on Alex Zane. Alex Zane sitting at 8 points, Clark Connors sitting at 6 points. Wheeler Yuta and TJP will face off. TJP sitting at 8 points, Wheeler Yuta sitting at 8 points, so they will be battling to see who can finish above 500 in the B block. Then we will see Sho and Yo, the former tag team partners, will face off on the final night of the round robin. They are both sitting at 8 points, so we'll be competing to see which one of them can finish over 500 as well. We will also see Robbie Eagles take on Teton. So as previously mentioned, Robbie Eagles still in the hunt. He's at 10 points, and if he wins and El Phantasmo loses, then Robbie Eagles advances to the finals. Teton, sitting at 6 points, very much mathematically eliminated. Then we will see Ace Austin versus Francesco Akira in the A block. As previously mentioned, Ace Austin mathematically eliminated. for the most part, unless both Taiji Ishimori and Hiromu Takahashi somehow get disqualified and get 0 points each. Ace Austin sitting at 10 points, Francesco Akira at 6 points. Good showing for Ace Austin, for sure. Francesco Akira, of course, this was both of their Best of the Super Juniors debut. And then in a match which will mean everything if Robbie Eagles was to lose the previous match, El Desperado would take on El Phantasmo. El Desperado needs Robbie Eagles to lose, and then he needs to beat El Phantasmo. El Phantasmo can advance with either a win or a draw. And then, of course, in the main event, the winner advances to the finals. It's Hiromu Takahashi going up against Taiji Ishimori. And with that, you are completely up to date with everything that's making headlines in the world of pro wrestling, minus anything happening in sports entertainment. Make sure you are subscribed to Spoiler Free Wrestling for all your wrestling news.